Hey, what's up, everyone? Sam Shaw here, founder of Wall Street Mastermind. Super excited to be back today with another client interview for you guys. And today I'm excited to have Doug on with us. Doug is one of our students that we've been working with since the very beginning of his freshman year back in 2023. And so I'm glad to say we're sitting here today in April of 2025, and he recently finished recruiting for his summer 2026 internship and was able to come out the other side successfully with an offer. And so I want to get him come on here today and just talk about his experience, talk about his journey, how he was able to kind of overcome all the numerous obstacles along the way. And hopefully, in the process of this conversation, we'll be able to share some insights that you'll be able to take and implement into your own process and help you with your own recruiting journey as well. So with that said, Doug, thank you for being here with us today. And if you don't mind, just kick things off for us by introducing yourself real quick so that our audience knows who you are.
Yeah, sure. And thank you so much for having me, Sam. So I'm Douglas, currently a sophomore econ major at the College of New Jersey. So it's like a small liberal arts college in the center of New Jersey. And I guess so like before I came into college, I kind of knew I wanted to do something in finance. And then I kind of realized that I wanted to do investment banking. But just kind of like going into my freshman year, it was basically like a black box for me because you hear a bunch of stuff on the internet, but you don't really know which direction to take, actually how to break into this industry because it's just very competitive. So I was lucky enough to kind of come across one of Sam's ads on Instagram. So I got a call set up and I got into the program kind of early on in my freshman year. And so basically from there, I think that was probably the best decision I made because I was able to get a head start on the recruitment process, with all the modules, all the coaching. They were able to kind of set me up for my first search fund internship. And then after that, my investment banking internship. And just after that, a lot of the networking and interview prep I learned from the course. And then recently I just got an offer from BNP Paribas for next summer. So definitely grateful to have been a part of this program.
That's awesome, man. Huge congrats on that, obviously. And I guess I always like to ask, but what did that feel like when you first got the offer?
It's really funny. I was actually after the super day, I had gotten stress tested by one of the interviewers. So that like I was kind of like feeling down. I didn't think I was going to get the internship offer. And
Yeah.
literally the next day, I'm like sitting, it's like 5 minutes before a first round interview with another firm. I'm sitting there and I get a call from the recruiter and he said, "Hey, look, man, the team love you. We wanna give you an offer." And so, I mean, first of all, it was just like very relieving because like it's like suddenly this whole burden is like lifted up. Like you got an offer, like you don't need to grind as hard. I just felt like just very satisfied, very happy because like I've worked basically 2 years in my undergrad, and now I got this offer. So yeah, I mean, it was a really great feeling.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. We'll talk about the stress test in a little bit, but who were the first people you told about the offer?
Who the first people I told? I think it was, I think it was you guys. Yeah, I texted the chat and then I texted Johnny Wang as well. So told you guys, and then I told my dad, and then told my family, and then eventually like my friends, and then the kind of word just got out, and then I just posted on LinkedIn. So
Nice, man. How did your family react?
they were
What did they?
happy. Yeah, honestly, because they kind of saw like all of how hard the process was, after I got like rejections, how much like networking I had to do. So when I told them that I actually gotten the offer from BNP, they were like really happy for me. My dad was, I was very happy. My mom was almost on the verge of tears. So yeah, I mean, they were definitely very supportive. And then my roommates, my parents, because they also supported me throughout the process too. They were pretty happy for me.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's awesome. I always love asking that question because I'm a dad now and I have two kids. One's almost
Nice.
6 and one is almost 4, so they're much younger and don't have to look for jobs for a while. But I just have an appreciation now for how much work raising children and just how much
Definitely.
time and effort and money and just everything that you pour into them. And so sometimes I think ahead to many years in the future when my kids are grown up and they land whatever job they end up landing. I'm not like gonna force them to go into investment banking or anything,
Yeah,
but like if like you just want to see your kids be successful,
exactly.
and like if and when that moment comes, I think just like how for you it feels like man, 2 years of hard work all paid off. For them it's like man, 18, 19, 20 years of hard work all paid off, right? And
Exactly. Yeah.
that's such an amazing feeling. Awesome, man. So coming back to kind of what you were saying a little bit earlier, you said one of your interviewers during the Super Day stress test you. I think some people are probably wondering like, what does that mean? Stress test you. So like, I mean, I know what you're talking about, but can you
Yeah.
kind of explain to everyone else like what you're referring to there?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it was the last interview of the Super Day. And so she kind of started out like pretty neutral. And then at one point she starts going like doing like a deep dive into my resume. So it just kind of started off like asking questions about like a deal I worked on during my internship and kind of just going deeper and deeper into that. And so then just at one point, right, like she was asking me like, what are the type of expenditures that impact cash flow for like a tech company? And so I was able to name like two, and she was like, do you know another one? She was trying to get me to name another one, and she could see that I couldn't. And so she was basically like, well, if you actually work with a fintech client, you would know how to answer this question. And I was like, I was just kind of like, whoa, like what's going on here? And so at that point, she was like, if you don't put things on your resume that you don't know how to talk about. And then at that point, I was just like, you know what? You're absolutely right. I shouldn't have done that. You're absolutely right. So I just tried to be as like humble as possible. And then
Yeah.
like literally like that, she just kind of switched off and she was like, okay, like do you have any other questions for me? So yeah, no, it was definitely intense. Like I've never had an interviewer do that. And I thought she like hated me. I thought like she just didn't like me for some reason. So that's why like I left the interview kind of feeling like, oh wow, like I might not get the offer. But I
Yeah.
I somehow ended up getting it. So yeah.
In that moment, it probably felt pretty terrible because you're like, oh, it's game over, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's like
You
yeah,
know,
it's like you got me. Yeah.
yeah. And like, I mean, we do always tell everyone, it's like, hey, every single bullet you put on your resume, you got to be ready to defend it. If you don't, you're kind of opening yourself up for situations like that. And sometimes it's like they're just stress testing you, which it sounds like kind of
Hmm.
was what happened here. But sometimes it's actually like they really mean what they say and you actually don't get the offer, right? But on the point of the stress test too, here's something that I always tell all of our students too, because like a lot of students will come back from like a super day. They'll say, yeah, like 3 out of the 4 interviews went well. And then there was one interview. Usually it's like there's one interview where the guy just looked like he was not into it. Like,
Hmm.
he looked like he was really bored, or he looked like he was distracted, or he looked like he just didn't like me. And what I always tell people is if you encounter something like that, there's only two possibilities. One is they actually are bored and they actually don't like you and they actually don't want to be there, in which case you are probably screwed. But you you don't there's no benefit to assuming that that is the case, because if that is the case then you're screwed out of the way, right? And there's nothing you can do about it. It's just like, okay, bad luck. The other
Hmm.
possibility is they're actually just pretending and they're doing that to apply some pressure because they want to see how you perform under pressure, because investment banking is a very high pressure environment, right? And they want to see if you're going to get phased by that, or if you, in this case, you showed like, hey, you're not like defensive, you're humble about it, and you didn't like break down or like start sweating balls or whatever, right? And like, which a lot of people would, right? And so you kind of almost have to assume that that is what they're doing, because if it is what they're doing and you don't get phased by it and you just tell yourself like, oh, this is just a test, and therefore you don't change the way you respond and then you pass that test, that's going to make you stand out versus other people. Versus if you actually fall for it, then you're not going to pass.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's kind of how I think
absolutely.
about it and how I tell everyone to think about it. I think what you have to realize, and usually it's just only one person that does that, and that's not a coincidence, because in a super day they have like an entire panel of interviewers and they all meet with like the same
Hmm.
candidates, and each person, they talk about it beforehand, like, hey, you're responsible for doing this, you're responsible for doing this, you're going to ask these questions, you're going to ask the technical questions, you're going to
Hmm.
stress test them, you're going to be the whatever. And so it's like that's why it's multiple interviews back to back.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's great that
So
you
you can
handled it
see.
so well. It's kind of twisted that they do that, but at the same time, it is, like I said, it's a very high pressure environment, and they want to make sure that they hire the people who are not going to
Definitely. Yeah.
fold easily under pressure.
Yeah, yeah.
So
That makes
I guess
sense.
one thing I did want to ask you too is, like, obviously, because you college in New Jersey, like, it's not really it's just not really, it's not a target
It's
school.
not even a yeah, not even a
Yeah,
semi-target.
not a semi-target. It's just like straight up non-target, right? Are there other? I mean, I'm sure there are, but like, there's probably not a lot of kids from your school who are trying to break into investment banking, I'm guessing, or are there? I guess you guys are kind of close to New York, but
I would say the population is growing, but when I first came to TCNJ, I mean, I could probably count the amount of alumni we had in investment banking like on my fingers. Like it wasn't that much. And just like the amount of kids who actually wanted to go into banking, like I was probably the only person I knew who wanted to go into banking. The investment banking club on campus was actually inactive. So like that just goes to show like there was like no demand for it. And so I
Yeah.
basically had to revive the club. And I think
Wow.
because of that, like there's slowly kind of a growing population of students who want to go into investment banking. But yeah, I mean, to your point, like, yeah, there was basically no demand. No, like there wasn't a huge, like kind of alumni network or a body of students who wanted to go into banking. So in that sense, it was definitely harder, at TCNJ.
So you revived the club. So you're like the president of the club, basically.
President and refounder, basically. Yeah,
Gotcha. That's crazy, man. I mean, in a way, I guess it's good in that, it gave you the opportunity to add like
exactly.
leadership experiences to your resume. But I mean, that's pretty wild considering the fact that, a lot of the students that you're competing with probably going to schools like Wharton or Columbia or NYU Stern and Ross, and they
Mhm.
have like not even just one club, they have multiple feeder clubs and
Exactly. Yeah.
a ton of alumni that they can go after. So how did you know so early on that like before sounds like before you even got to college, how did you already know you wanted to do finance? Or like what was the spark, I guess?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I would say so. I think in high school, right, freshman year, I wanted to be a doctor initially, right, and then kind of found out that I didn't really like science that much. And then actually, it was one of my scoutmasters, and so this is the part of like when people usually ask me like, "Tell me about yourself." This is actually like true. So my scoutmaster, he used to be an analyst at Goldman Sachs, and so he told me about like investment banking, and so like kind of like all the benefits of the career. And I mean, I just like that. I also talked to one of my uncles who's a lawyer, right? So I was just kind of looking at those two career paths and I was like, wow, investment banking just seems more interesting than law. So I was like, I think, and I kind of just thought about it more. And I felt like if I did banking straight out of undergrad, I could really set myself up for success in the future, not only financially, but also just like in terms of career, because like, after investment banking, there's like tons of career paths after that. So that was kind of like the point where I was like, okay, I think investment banking, probably as a business major, I think investment banking is going to be the best field to try to get into,
Yeah.
after college. So that's why I decided to try to break into it.
That makes sense. So then you get to campus and it's, because you joined us like in September of freshman year, basically,
Hmm.
which is like right after the school year started. What made you want to join Wall Street Mastermind? Because I'm guessing since you joined that early, this was basically like the first thing you really did to try to prepare for recruiting, right? And like that happens sometimes for people, but I feel like a lot of times when people come to us, they maybe already like try some stuff on their own and it didn't work. And
Hmm.
then that's when they come for help. For you, you had a different mentality of just like, hey, I'm just gonna join something like this from the get go. Like, what
Exactly. Yeah.
went into that decision? I guess.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I would say initially in my freshman year, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to see if I can break into this by myself. I'll try to get into the industry by myself. So just read a lot of articles online. Went to Wall Street Oasis. Mergers and Inquisitions. So just scoured the internet basically. And so I started to do some networking, and then I just kind of realized that like wow, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of like nitpicky details that like these websites don't tell you because oftentimes they're giving you a lot of high level stuff. But I was like, okay, let me just try to stick it out. Maybe I'll like kind of learn more with more experience. And then there was this basically, so I had a networking call with an MD. And then after that, I accidentally sent emails to his colleagues and I name dropped him like without asking him. And so because of that mistake, like he just called me up after class and he started like grilling me. And then so that was kind of like the turning point where I realized like, wow, like I actually don't know anything about networking and I need like a solid program to actually help me with this. Because if I did that to like every connection, then I would just burn all my bridges. And then, I would not be able to break into this industry. So that was the kind of point where I was like, okay, you know what? I need like a formal program. I need coaches. I need someone to guide me through this process. And so it was then that I decided to go to the program. And me and this MD, we're like good now. Like, he understands that I was just starting out. But that was definitely like a really scary moment. I was like, oh man, like it was a reality check basically because I realized that wow, I need a coach. I need someone to help me do this if I actually want to get into investment banking.
You say you're good now, so like you guys have talked since then, or you guys stayed in touch, or
Yeah, we've had a phone conversation since then. I mean, I reached out to update him just like recently, but he didn't respond to me. So maybe he got busy because we did have like more than two phone calls. So
wow.
yeah, we'll
No,
see.
I mean I'm sure he's super busy. You say he called you after class and grilled you on like what technical questions you mean, or like grilled you
No,
as why are you talking to people about me or whatever? Like
Yeah, exactly. So I got back from my econ class, and then he called me up, and he was like, "So look, my colleagues are talking about how like you name dropped me in your email, and that's like he was I forget what he was saying because it was a very long time ago. But he was like, there's a point where it becomes annoying, and you're at that point right now. So yeah, so so I was like, oh my God. It was so yeah, it was crazy because like I was just a freshman, like I didn't know what I was getting to, and I'm already getting grilled by MD. So I was like,
Yeah.
wow.
You're
Yeah.
like peeing your pants basically.
Basically, yeah. I like Panic called Eric Tonise. I think he was in the program, but he was
Uh,
kind of like one of the people who was I guess my point of entry. So I called him up. I was kind of freaking out, and then yeah, he kind of helped me. He kind of motivated me to get into the program too. So
did you
yeah.
already know him before that, or?
No. I think it was. I think I responded to your message on Instagram or something, and like you
Oh,
connected
okay,
me
yeah, yeah.
through
He
it.
was the
Yeah,
first one that I talked to. Got you, got you.
yeah. And he got the consultation call set up. So.
That's a crazy
Mhm.
story. So okay, so then you decided to join this program. I assume then what you had to go like convince your parents to let you join this program, or did you just like do it on your own? Like,
Yeah. I had to. So my dad was actually opposed to it because like he didn't want me just like spending so much money up front, especially with like no offense, but like I didn't really know you. Like it's just like
yeah, yeah,
a program on the internet.
right.
He was definitely against it. And then like I kind of was deciding like, yeah, if I went ahead with it, I might like make him mad. But I also decided that it's like my career, and like I knew I wanted to do this. I went ahead, I signed all the papers, and then I told him afterwards. So he was kind of mad, but then like afterwards, he kind of warmed up to it because after he kind of saw all the internships I got. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of how it worked.
Wow. So you just went ahead and did it first. You basically like do it first and ask for forgiveness later, basically.
So it's funny because when I was applying for colleges, like I was just applying to these like top Ivy League schools, right? And I didn't have any mentors. Like it was just me doing the application, and so I didn't get into any of them. And then just like so, when I was deciding to get into investment banking, I was realizing that I can't make that same mistake again because like if I'm trying to go into this thing by myself, then I'm like probably not going to compete with other people who know what they're doing, who have coaches. So I needed to get like instruction myself. I needed to get a coach. That's one of the
Yeah,
biggest factors to why I made.
or even if other people don't have coaches, but they go to like a
Mhm.
target school and they have way more
Right.
resources
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
they have these
Mhm.
clubs and alumni and all these things that you don't have, basically.
Right.
Gotcha. That makes
Yeah.
sense, man. Did you like do pretty well in high school, like as a student?
Yeah. I think my GPA was like a 4.0. I was an Eagle Scout. Did pretty well. I think it
Yeah.
was
So,
just the fact that
so you had what it took, like on paper. It wasn't like you were. I'm just clarifying because like it wasn't like, oh, I had crappy GPA in high school and then so I couldn't get into targets. So it's like you actually had good grades, you had good
yeah.
extracurriculars, but you like didn't get into any of those schools, and then so that's where you were just like, oh, it just came down to not having the proper guidance, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think now in retrospect, I look back at it and it's like, I think my story just wasn't clear. Like I did a bunch of music clubs, but then I said I wanted to study econ. So it just didn't really jive well, you know? And so I realized that that was probably the mistake is that like I didn't have a story from the get-go. And I
Yeah.
realized that like in investment banking recruiting, good grades are basically just like the bare minimum. Like you also have to like have a good story. And so I knew I couldn't really do that just by myself.
And applying to colleges or applying to, elite colleges and applying for investment banking, I mean, it's not the exact same thing, but there's a lot of similarities, right? And it's like
Exactly. Yeah.
when you're trying to figure out how to pitch yourself, how to frame your story, how to position yourself as a candidate, obviously in the moment you are going with whatever you thought was best. It's not like you weren't trying to like give the best answer, but a lot of times hindsight's 2020, and in that moment you might not you most likely won't realize if there is something wrong with the way you're positioning it, because if you knew there was something wrong with it, you wouldn't have
Exactly.
positioned it that way in the first place. Yeah, so that's like having someone who's more experienced and can give you that like experienced third party point of view
Hmm.
and uncover things that you wouldn't miss otherwise, like that's really, really
Exactly.
important, right?
Absolutely.
That makes a ton of sense. So, okay, so then you come in and obviously you've been in the program for um a year and a half now, basically, right? Until you for probably exactly a year and a half until when you got your offer. So walk us through kind of what you've been doing over during that time. Like we don't have to talk about every single thing because obviously I'm sure you did a ton. But if you had to just touch on like two or three of the most impactful things or the things that really move the needle the most for you, like what would you say those were?
So just to clarify, move the needle in terms of like what the program did, or like just what things I've been doing in general throughout the whole process.
Yeah, just like, in terms of things you did in the program that you feel like really helped you, right? Like if you
Hmm.
go back and think about there's an alternate universe where maybe you just try to recruit on your own.
Yeah. Okay.
What would have been
Sure.
different versus like what actually happened since you
Sure.
joined the program?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think just right off the bat, right? Like I think just the modules there, like it basically condenses all of the stuff you see online into just like one place. And so I can just sit there, I can watch all the modules, and then like just like after a week or something, I'll know all I need to know about like behaviorals or applications or networking. So I mean, I think that just really helped me just like really well position myself as soon as I got into the program. And then I think the biggest part of it, like the other big part, was just having the coaches on hand like 24/7, being able to ask advice all the time, send it in the group chat. It's not like Wall Street Oasis where you ask a question and there's like some random people just answering your questions, and they don't know what they're talking about, right? Now there's like people who have experience. And so yeah, I mean just having that support, that was really helpful. And then just like in order to get my internships, like my search fund and my investment banking internship, yeah, I mean, I would say it was a combination of the modules and also just having the 24/7 coach support. Not only that, but also like the mock interviews that you helped set me up with. Those are really helpful for, preparing for the interviews. So yeah, I would say it was those three things, right? I was just like the models, like they gave me all the information I needed, just like the 24/7 support in the group chat, and just the mock interviews. I think those things really definitely helped me prepare throughout each stage of the recruitment process.
Yeah. And I mean, when you mentioned modules, like I'm looking at it right now because I actually have like a dashboard where I track like all of our students' progress. And so I can see like how much of the modules everyone has actually gone through. And I'm looking at yours and I see that you had 100% completion rate on every single module, which first of all, I want to call that out because obviously like you came in and I don't know how long it took you to like complete all the modules from the time you joined, but like clearly you were one of those students that like did all the work, right? Which I was like, and we track this data because we know that there's like a very high correlation between how much people actually put in the work in our program versus like how likely it
Mhm.
is that they actually end up with an offer.
Yeah.
Even coming from a school like the College of New Jersey, where people typically don't ever, like rarely if ever, get into investment banking, it's like if you are able to equip yourself with all the knowledge that you need, then like you could get in from any school, really, right? Because
Hmm.
it's not like they will only hire people from Ivy League schools. It's just that
Yeah.
usually the Ivy League school kids know what
Yeah.
they have to do and you
Right.
don't. And also they have alumni who can help them and you don't, right?
Hmm.
And so anyway, I think that's the first thing that really jumps out at me, which is like you did literally every single thing we asked you to do. And then when you got stuck and when you had questions, you raised your hand and you were one of the like pretty active class who were constantly asking us questions, which like, and I mean that as a compliment because that's a good thing because we'll say
Hmm.
like, hey, like we really only need two things from everyone. One, we need you to do the work that we asked. Two,
Hmm.
when you have questions or you don't understand something, we need you to like raise your hand and ask us, or we won't know that you're not understanding.
Hmm.
Right? And then
Yeah.
like you did both of those things, and then so of course you got results, which is awesome. On the note of like alumni, I'm sure a lot of people are listening to this and they're wondering like, okay, so you go to like TCNJ, you barely have any alumni. How did you even go about your networking, or like
Hmm.
who did you even
Yeah.
network with?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
And also
I
like
mean,
how much better have you gotten at networking? Because like we talked earlier about the story
oh
with
my
the
God.
MD.
Right. Yeah. 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 Yeah, I guess to answer the first question. So again, TCNJ alumni, we have like barely just like anyone in banking. And a lot of them didn't actually start in banking. They started in like another field and then lateraled into banking. But basically the way I went about it was exactly how the modules told me to go. So I first started with my alumni. It was kind of like the core group. And I just began to expand with just trying to find similarities between me and other people. So one big thing was trying to find Eagle Scouts, because as an Eagle Scout, I felt like I could connect better with bankers. So like some of my networking emails would be like fellow Eagle Scouts seeking advice. And that got a lot of responses. So that helped me out a lot. And after that, I just tried to expand the network basically just reaching out to bankers from non-target schools. So if I saw someone who didn't necessarily go to TCNJ, but they went to somewhere like Penn State or Fordham, I felt that that was, they came from non-targets, and so they would be a little more receptive to my email. And in fact, some bankers have actually told me on networking calls that like, oh, the only reason they responded to me was because they saw that I went to a non-target and they went to a non-target. So they thought they would help me out. So yeah, it was just it's just kind of like just expanding my network as much as possible, and just beyond that, just like trying to get the emails sent out as much as possible. I mean, I think at this point, I probably sent out at least like 3,000 emails, like, taking into account the first emails, the follow-ups, and the second follow-ups. So it's not easy by any means, right? Like from a non-target, like your alumni network is very small. But I would definitely say just kind of like the advice your program gave me kind of informed like how much networking I should do, how I could best strategize my networking. So that definitely helped a lot. And how I improved with networking, it was just like getting the reps in. So when I first started networking, I remember like a lot of bankers would tell me to not be so robotic. Don't just like ask one question after the other. It was, yeah. I mean, I had some networking calls where I was just like stumbling, and then just like I was asking really like stupid questions. So that was kind of in the beginning of the process. But I just, it's just about keep on doing the networking calls. So eventually I got really well, got better at the networking calls. I think now I've done like over 100 networking calls probably. So that's definitely, yeah, just, I think just getting the reps in has definitely helped me a lot.
Wow, that's awesome. And I mean, look, I've heard similar numbers before from other non-target students in Wall Street Mastermind, so it doesn't surprise me. But I'm sure for a lot of people in our audience to hear the number of emails you sent out, like 3,000,
Hmm.
I mean, that's probably like a shocking number for a lot of people. But a lot of times, honestly, someone coming from a super non-target, that is kind of what it takes, because like your response rate is going to be lower than someone who's
Hmm.
like going to Wharton and emailing all the Wharton bankers that are already
Right.
working on Wall Street, right? And to your point, like don't just rely on your school being that commonality that you have with the banker. Like that is the super low hanging fruit that everyone's going after, but there's other commonalities that you can try to find, like the Eagle Scout example, right?
Hmm.
Like, I know like there are people that will even reach out to bankers that are like the same ethnicity as them,
Yeah. Yeah.
or like it could be whatever, right? And so maybe they play the same sport, and so I think yeah, it's again, this goes back to kind of what I said earlier, which is you really did the work, not just like going through the modules, but even on the networking side, you went all out and you put in countless hours
Hmm.
to doing that, right?
Hmm.
Which is why you deserve the offer that you got. On the interview prep side of things, how did you? So you mentioned the mock interviews, like
Hmm.
what? I guess even prior to the mock interviews, because usually the mock interviews, that's like after you've already kind of done all the prep, after you've learned the technical concepts, after you've already like figured out what you want to say for your behavioral answers, right? And so, can you kind of talk about the prep prior to the mock interviews a little bit? Like, how was that process for you? I guess.
Yeah, I think it was a very structured process. So like with the technicals, I would watch the technical modules and I'd like, do practice questions on IPVine or the 400 guide. And on the behavioral side, it was pretty simple. It was pretty straightforward too. Like I would like there's a questionnaire sheet, so I would like put in my answers, send it to Johnny. Johnny would look it over, and then we kind of like kind of improve my answers. So I actually started preparing for behaviorals and technicals actually I think spring of 2024 because I was interviewing with some regional boutiques then, so I wanted to get super ready with that. So and I eventually got an internship at a boutique, and I just like stopped practicing interviews like completely up until basically January of this year. That's when recruitment started up again. So I basically went all out on my interview prep. So started reciting all of my behavioral stories again, getting back into doing my technical prep. And so yeah, I mean, I think just kind of having that guidance with me, like I was able to practice a lot of the behaviorals, a lot of the technicals, eventually got some first rounds. And then before initially, right, I wasn't doing as many mock interviews. I was doing some, with Dan Stone, but like it wasn't as many. So I was just kind of practicing on my own, doing the mock interviews. And then I got to an Evercore Super Day and I didn't get the offer from Evercore, but that was kind of like a wake up call. That was at the moment I was like, wow, I really need to do a lot more mock interviews. And so after that, I started scheduling like I just went crazy. Like I sent out a chat in the class of 2027. I was like, hey, anyone who wants to do a mock interview with me, hit me up. So I was doing I was basically doing a mock interview a day with like other people in the program. And then I was also doing mock interviews with coaches. And so I think that prep, like just from basically, I think it was a month ago, basically in February, right? So from February until now, March, I was just doing like mock interviews almost every day. And so when it came time for my BNP Super Day, like I was like super prepared. So yeah, that was kind of like the interview recruitment process for me.
Was Evercore your first interview?
Yeah, it was my first round. Yep. I had a first round with Evercore. Yeah, it was the first firm. And then after that, I got other interviews from like PWP, Triple Tree, and then I think and then William Blair too. Yeah,
And then BNP was after that, and then that's when you got your offer, basically.
exactly.
Okay. So you went through like five firms basically before you got your offer.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, man. That's the other thing that I think most people don't realize, which is a lot of times people just kind of hear like, oh, this person got an offer, that person got an offer, and they're like, they just think it's all like rainbows and sunshine, and it's like, oh, it must have been
No.
super easy for them or whatever. Most of the students that I know have to go through at least several rejections before they get their first offer. It's just that competitive. Like, yes, there are some people that get every single offer they interview for or whatever. But like, it's very rare. Those are the exception, not the rule. And so it's, I always use like a baseball analogy. Like if you play baseball and you bat 300, you're like Hall of Fame status, right? Like, so very few people go up for investment making interviews and bat, 1,000. It's just like doesn't happen. But the most important thing is like, when you don't pass these interviews, are you learning anything from that experience? Like, can you reflect on why you didn't pass and what you could have done better? And, and because if you can, then you fix that. And then you go into your next interview, and next time you're going to do a little bit better. And maybe it's good enough and maybe it's not. And then like, you got to go to the next interview. But like, as long as every time you fall, you're falling forward, then you're still getting closer to your goal.
Exactly.
Right. Now, of course, there's within reason, right? Like you're only going to have so many interviews at the end of the day. So you also don't want to like have to rely too much on trial and error, because then you're going to waste all these opportunities. And some people do run out of interviews and they still don't have an offer. Right. But no, that's I think what you described sounds like a very reasonable kind of process. Actually, honestly, it's an amazing outcome for someone coming from your school. I was thinking about this earlier. I was like, since you guys barely have any alumni, and a lot of them don't start directly in banking, they start from like other industries and lateral in. In the future, you're probably going to get a ton of networking requests from the younger students at your school. Because you're going to be one of the few alumni that they can actually reach out to.
Yep.
It'll be better to be on the other side, I promise.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah. So I guess my last question for you, because I know we're almost out of time, but what's like your best piece of advice for people who either are about to go through the process now, or maybe they're currently going through the process but they haven't gotten an offer yet? Like, is there anything that you picked up along the way on your own, or maybe someone else, shared their advice with you that just really helped you a lot? Is there anything like that you want to kind of pass down to other people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing, and I know you mentioned this in your mindset video in the application and networking module, but I think the most important thing is just resiliency. Like, there's going to be so many times where you're going to have bad networking calls, or you're going to get rejected from an interview, or there's just going to be like a lot of hard times. I think probably the thing that helped me most was just like keeping my head down and just keep going forward. Just keep doing what I do. Like, don't let those things like affect me. Just keeping resilient, keep going forward. I think this is probably the most important thing to know, like going into this process, because I think for me, like there was a lot of times where I was like, oh, maybe I should do like corporate banking instead, or maybe I should do like wealth management. But like, I'm really glad that I chose to stick to investment banking because it really paid off. So I think there's going to be a lot of times where you're probably going to like question like why you're even going through this process in the first place. So I would say resilience is key. I would also say you just need to know like what you're doing. Like if you're just like relying on internet sources and you're looking at Reddit, it's just kind of like you don't have a set program to follow. I think for me personally, I'm someone who, like, if you just lay out the instructions for me, I'll follow it to the T. And so I think that really helped me. And so I don't know about other people, but I would imagine for a lot of people, like if you just have a bunch of people telling you like different things, right? You have a bunch of different sources of information, different sources of advice, I think it's going to be very hard to kind of stick to a program. So I would just say, like, you should definitely have kind of like a solid plan in place, and kind of going along with that, like have mentors too. Because for me, I know there was like definitely a lot of times where I had a lot of nitpicky questions, I had a lot of like curiosities that I didn't really know. So it was really helpful kind of just having a mentor there. And especially like they can see things that you need to improve on that you might not necessarily see. And like constantly improving, I think was also a key to that. So having mentors is definitely super important. And I think the last thing I would say is probably it's just a grind. Like it shouldn't be an easy process. Like it was definitely very hard. And I don't think it's a process where you can just kind of like put like 50% effort in. Like I think if you really want investment banking, like you just gotta kind of put like you gotta put 110% of your effort in. And I think having that mindset is going to inform like all the different actions you take. So yeah, I'd say just those things like resiliency, having a mentor and just really grinding it out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those are really great points. Resiliency and being able to grind it out, I think those two kind of go hand in hand, which is, I always tell people, like, obviously being able to start a career in investment banking that's an amazing
Hmm.
accomplishment. It's one of the highest paying jobs. You're making upwards of like 3 times more than what the average college grad is
Yeah,
making. So like your buddies making one third on average, making one third what you're making, which is just like, of course everyone wants that, but also that's how life works. Is just like, if there's something that everyone wants or a lot of people want, the more people want something, the harder it is to get. Right. And so like the of course we all want nice things,
hmm,
but you just have to realize that most of the nice things you want is not going to be easy to come by, because if it was easy to come by, then everyone would have those things and it wouldn't be that special. Right. So I think a lot of people, they want the nice things, but they don't want to do the work that goes along with,
yeah,
you know, getting the outcome. And so that's where it's like, you really have to see like, hey, is this something you want to do or not? Right. And how much do you
exactly.
actually want? Like, are you willing to make the sacrifices that are required? And then of course, I think your second point about having a mentor is like being willing to work hard and do the hard things. That's part of the equation. But if all you're doing is working really, really hard, but you're like doing the
Or
wrong
you're going in the
things,
wrong direction. Yeah, there's no
yeah,
point.
or you're going the wrong direction, you're still not going to get to like the destination that you're trying to get to,
Hmm.
right? You want to like
Exactly.
work really hard, but you also want to make sure that you're doing the right things at the right time in the right order, and that you're not making like silly mistakes that could easily be avoided if you just have someone who's like more experienced telling you what to watch out for, right? So like the analogy I use is like, if you're trying to summit Mount Everest for the first time, most people would hire a Sherpa who has been up and down the mountain many, many times so that they can go
Yeah.
up. Like, you still have to
Hmm.
climb the mountain yourself. Like, they're not going to like,
Right.
carry you on piggyback right up the mountain. But
Yeah.
like, but they're walking every step of the way with you and telling you, hey, don't step over there. If you step over there, you're going to fall off a cliff. Go this
Hmm.
way, whatever. Right. Versus
Yeah.
like, if you just try to summit the mountain yourself for the first time, like, you might die. Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm
Yeah.
not saying like recruiting is life or death, but like it is going to determine like your career trajectory for the next several decades. And that is like
Absolutely.
not trivial, right? And so why would you want to, if you're doing this for the first time, you've never been up this mountain before, why would you want to summit this mountain yourself? Right. And so I think that's, really, really good advice that you gave there, and really appreciate you sharing that with everyone. And,
Yeah, of
to our
course.
audience, yeah, to our audience, I just want to say, if you're still here with us and you're listening to this and a lot of this resonates with you, maybe you also go to a school that's like super non-target and there's barely anyone at your school that's trying to do what you're trying to do. Maybe you don't have a lot of alumni to reach out to. Maybe you've already tried to network some on your own and like it hasn't really, and you've made a bunch of mistakes and you're like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Right. Maybe you also need the structure that, Douglas was talking about in terms of, that's how you learn best. Whatever the reason may be, like if you feel like you want that extra guidance and you want that Sherpa to like kind of summon the mountain with you, then I would encourage you to just reach out to our team. You can go to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The street is abbreviated to ST. So it's wallstmastermind.com/apply. And you can just book a call with our team. We'll hop on. We'll talk to you about your situation. We'll learn more about like just your profile. What kind of banks are you trying to get into? What have you already done on your own? What do you feel like you're struggling with? What do you need help with? Whatever it is that you want to tell us and share with us. And then like based on what you tell us, we'll help you map out like what we think the best game plan would be for someone in your situation, because everyone's going to be a little bit different. And then from there, like, look, if you want us to help you implement this game plan, we're happy to do so. If you want to like take the game plan we'll give you and just go out and run with it on your own, like you're more than welcome to do that as well. Either way is fine. Like we just want to help as much as we can, right? So we're encourage you guys to do that. But otherwise, Douglas, I want to thank you again for taking so much time out of your day, to talk to us. And it was really, really great helping you with this process. And I'm excited to see what you accomplish next summer at BMP and beyond. And also, if there's anything else that you need in the meantime, just don't be a stranger. So
yeah. Thank you so much. And I just like final words, like TCNJ, like if you live outside of New Jersey, you probably never heard of TCNJ. So going into it, like I thought breaking into banking was impossible, but Wall Street Mastermind, they made it possible. I'm like at like one of the biggest, banks in France right now. So I think just like final words, right? Like if you're on the fence about it, I would just say like just do what Sam said, go to a website. I think it's definitely worth it.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you for the plug.
Yeah, no problem. No, I really mean it. I really mean it.
I appreciate that truly. All right, guys. Well, we'll end on that note, and we'll be back with more of these for you guys in the near future. And until next time. All right. Cheers. All right. Thank you.